Now it's time to start making the zipper bag. I flipped the fabric over. I'm just giving it a good brush to get rid of any old threads or anything that's at the bottom. What we're going to do is probably make 2 to 3 bags out of this. The first thing is to fold it in half to find the midway point. I'm just going to line those up so that we can quickly find the halfway. Yes, you could measure it, but I just find this a bit quicker to do. Now before I cut, I'm going to cut mine now, but before you cut it, if you want to keep those pieces of fabric you've got around the edge, you might want to take those off yours. So let's get my ruler and going to cut along here. The next step is to now straighten up the sides. Now that we've got a straight line at the bottom, we can use that and our quilting ruler to just cut up each side of the fabric to make a nice rectangular piece. And there we have it. One piece nice and squared up. I'm going to use the pink for the top today, and we're going to leave the other side as the inside. I've now turned my fabric over to be face up. I've put the end closest to me where I'm going to end up putting the zip. Now I need to measure the width of this fabric, which for my piece is 10¼ inches. The next step is to take your zip. Now the end where the head isn't when it's closed, we're going to chop the end off of that because we're going to create a tag in the next step. Okay, so just take your rotary cutter and we're just going to take the end off that and then make it nice and straight. They can be a little difficult to cut because of the thickness of the teeth. Now that we've measured the width of the fabric and also cut the end off the zipper, we need to make a little tag. Now what I'm going to use is a reverse fabric so it just complements. So I'm just going to move this aside. What I need to do is be able to get 2 of these. So I'm going to just measure, just eyeball it, how long I need the piece of fabric. I just pulled this piece off the offcuts so that I can use it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is iron it in half, and then I'm going to iron the bits together like this into the middle, and then we iron it in half. I'll just go and do the ironing now and then come back and show you what it looks like. Now ironed this, so you can see that it's in half and then half again, and then it just makes a little area for the zip to go in. What I'm going to do is go to the sewing machine. We're just going to sew across the top here, and then now that we've ironed down that fabric, you can see that I'm popping the zipper end that we cut into the fabric. I like to have the teeth facing up. The zips can tend to move when you're sewing, so this way I have a little bit more control. What we're going to do is sew over the zip and then turn it around and sew back. I'm just trying to sew as close as I can to the edge of the fabric. I'm sorry that you can't quite see what I'm doing. A little bit hard with my hand in the way. So yeah, just flipping it around again, put the foot back down and then sew back over. I think it doesn't matter too much if you don't get it absolutely straight. It's just all a part of how you do your sewing, so don't be too worried about that. As you can see, we've now sewn this piece on. So what I need to do is trim this off, just nicely neating it up and tidying it up. Right, we're going to reuse this piece here for the other end of the zip. Now what I can't stress enough is that you pull the zip down so that you don't end up cutting the head off the zip. I have done this myself before. And we need to measure it 9¼ inches because our fabric is 10¼ wide and you need it 1 inch less. So here we go. It's 9¼ and I just tend to roll over it like so, and then I'll take it to the sewing machine and we're going to sew this on the other end. This step's going to be a little tricky because we've got the zip at the open end. It tends to sort of move around a bit, and I'm sorry that my hand's in the way on this. So what I'm going to try and do is I push it up as close as I can to the inside of the tag, and then just as we did before, we sew over it and then turn it around when we've got to the other side and go back over and do a double. At this point we take the zip, place it face down in the middle of the end of the fabric. We're back at the sewing machine. Centre your zip just by eyeballing it, that'll be good. Using an A foot, I just tend to rest the left hand side of the foot on top of the zip, or the zipper teeth, just to line it up. Now it can get caught just at the beginning here, so you just want to give it a little bit of a push. And just keep it riding down there, just lining it up with the edge of the foot and pushing the zip over as far as you can to the edge. It will move a little, but it ends up looking fine. Once you get to the zipper head, you'll need to stop. Now you can either just lift up the foot, sometimes they just slip underneath the foot. If you have issues, I slide mine around and then just bring it through the front like so, and then I can continue to sew. You don't need to rush this, just take your time, especially if you're not used to using zips. Now if your foot falls off like mine did just there, I just stop sewing, I cut the thread, I go back a bit and just reline it up again. Because we're going to top stitch it down, the thread's never going to come undone, but it just makes it look a lot neater than having it go sideways. Now we flip over the zip so that it's facing up, and we're just going to top stitch down. Just check underneath that the fabric is folded underneath, and try and stitch as close as you can to the zip and catching the fabric underneath. Just stop every now and again and check. You'll need to move the zip ahead as you go. Just take your time with this, especially if you haven't done it before. There's definitely no hurry here. So I just double check under there, push it around with my fingers. Just sew it down. Pulled on my thread, got to be careful with that. And then just carry on stitching. So this next step is where things can differ to other tutorials you may have watched on making zipper bags. I make my zipper bags in one complete piece of fabric rather than two. So what I'm going to do is just show you that you fold over the zip again so that it is facing your outside fabric, like so. And this step's pretty easy. I line up both pieces of fabric so that they are even on both sides. I'm hoping you can see this. And then just sew it down like we did in the first step. Now once I get halfway through, again I'm just going to move the zipper head past the foot, so I lift. I like to turn mine sideways and pull that zipper closed. Just line this up again. Put down and carry on. Okay, so before you turn it in the correct way, we're going to sew the inside. Now this is a little bit more tricky than normal. One of the things you want to do is make sure that you've pulled this fabric over. Try and make sure you can see. So we can check that as we go. Again, just rest your foot on the top of that zipper so you get it even like you did on the other side. Now as you go through, you're going to have to pull this back. And this is just going to start to bend, but by the time we get through, you'll see that it's all good. And just take your time with this. There is no need to hurry. You might want to lift and just check that the fabric is over. You can even iron it down before you start if it's just a bit bulky. Just keep pulling the top out of the way. As long as the zip's open, you'll find you've got enough room to do this. It's just you need to take little steps to keep everything straight. And there we go, finished. At this point, I can't stress enough about having the zip open. Okay, so what I tend to do is always try and have the zip as much as I can halfway. That way, can't forget. So, using my M foot at this point, I'm going to do a serge stitch down the side, each side of the bag. You can use a serger. There becomes a little issue sometimes just making sure that you don't cut the tab off. But if you're good with your serger, by all means use that. I like to use the pink thread that I've already been using on the bag, so I'm just going to use my M foot. At this point I'm just going to stop because you'll see that what's happening is this is just pulling this back here. So I just like to make sure, lift it up a little bit further, that it sits nice and flat, otherwise it will pucker a bit. I might just use my scissors under here. Very hard for me not to get in the way of the camera. To just make sure that that is sitting as flat as it can. It goes through the foot. You can hear the machine making quite a bit of noise. That's just purely because of the thickness of all the fabric. But just take it nice and easy and your flow will be fine. And now we're going to go down the other side. Okay, and here we go. At this point you can now turn your bag in to the correct way. I've turned my bag in the correct way, and I just want to show you here that you just need to make sure when you sew that you catch the little tab so it does go into the seam. I have it on one side and I just want to show you what happens when you don't. You can see the stitching. Just show you this here. So you want to make sure when you stitch down that you gather it into the seam like this. Okay? And I think it looks kind of nice with the zip part way down the top of the bag. I want to thank you for watching my tutorial on the zipper bag. We've gone through and fixed the little issue at the end of the zipper. So this is all now complete. I've ironed it, and all in all, not looking too bad. If you'd like to have a look at any of my other zipper bags that I've made, they're up on my Etsy shop. But if you'd like to give it a go, I'd love to see your photos and any comments that you might have. Just put them in the bottom and I can have a look at them. Thank you very much. Bye.